Good afternoon, Friday, March 20th, 2026 in House Transportation. We are going to be walking through, or at least being updated on the Ways and Means Amendment to our T-bill. I'd also like to have then the JFO come up and go through our fiscal note, since we actually haven't seen it officially yet. I don't know if it's still in draft format or if it went to final yet on that. So we go from Damien over to Logan. For the committee's benefit, our bill went to Ways and Means. It was heard. It was voted out 9-1-1 and came back to the floor and went to House Appropriations, where this morning it was presented in House Appropriations at 8 o'clock this morning, and it passed out of House Appropriations 11-0. So it came back. It will come back to the floor on Tuesday, barring unless we get involved, or what we could be as early as presentations Wednesday, but I don't know that for sure. I have no direction from the speaker where we might want to go to Wednesday or to Thursday to do it, or what the timings might work in that perspective. So it went out 11-0, went over, and then was amended, and then went out 9-1-1, and then went down to appropriations and came out 11-0 out of appropriations, I believe.
I guess I won't ask who it's the one, but what was the objection?
That there wasn't my interpretation of the reason that there was one no vote in Ways and Means was that there was, if I get it wrong, it was a very quick move. It came in and came out in the same day, and there wasn't much. It came out of here, and there was one the next day. There was basically another move, and then the next day. So they felt it was too fast, and that the issue around the town highways and pilots, I believe it specifically said, I think there should be at least one no vote to highlight to people there's something worth looking into here, is what I believe that representative said. You can go back and look at the video.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand it. Didn't they change some things in their law?
That's what we're going to see right now.
So maybe that's right.
We're going to see what they did to it. That's what I was in the room. So were some other people, but it's on the video. So it was not long. They went the entire morning, well, most of the morning over the mileage-based user fee, came back after lunch, and then made an amendment to the bill and sent it out. That took less time than the full review of, and most of the amendments related to the mileage-based user fee, but some of the bigger key portions may be the other area. So, Representative White?
I just have a question on process. Is it because I don't remember Ways and Means and Appropriations last year, and perhaps I'm just not remembering correctly. But so after a committee amends our bill, like Ways and Means made amendments, and does it always go directly to Appropriations, or does it come back to the committee to respond to the amendment and then go to?
It does go to Appropriations.
Directly.
It doesn't always go that.
Doesn't always.
They don't usually. They have a pretty full docket. It doesn't always skip to the front of the line, but it does go from. It does not come back here.
Okay.
But I would say that I can't say the T-bill. Most bills, they have the straw poll. If the Ways and Means amends it, usually the appropriation has the straw poll from the committee as to what they thought of the Ways and Means amendment. But in this case, it was brought up, and it was chose that it was not relevant whether we did or didn't thumbs it up or down to their vote on what they were going to see. Plus, we were not going to have possession of it, so they specifically said it didn't. I don't want to say the wrong quote, but it was pretty close. It didn't affect their ability to do their work based on whatever we were to straw poll it. Whether they did ask me what I thought, and I said that it was unanimous and sent over with full support. It's come back with came out with a significant change. I suspect there will be some significant reservations, as we were very uniform in our support of town highways. But I suspect that I suspect that it would likely get a favorable overall straw poll. They did ask that, but somebody asked that, not the chair. The chair said they would be moving forward without that straw poll.
But on the floor, when it's reported and the amendment comes up, the question will come to transportation.
And
right?
Yes, and on Tuesday, we will take the straw poll vote so that we will have that for the floor. Today, because we don't have everybody, we're going to hear it all. They can watch the video and look at the documents, but we're going to hear it. And then on Tuesday, we'll vote our straw vote. That's our plan.
So to that point, you've asked me to do the pilot. So that's gonna be in our bill that we're gonna present.
So when it goes to the floor, well, yes, and I may or may not make some change to that. And I'll make that decision, let you know in time to. We will still do our presentation of our bill. And then Ways and Means will get up and present their amendment. And then we'll go back to the entire bill, and they'll ask us then we'll speak to the amendment.
Right,
And then the body will vote on the amendment. And then they will vote on the underlying bill whether the amendment passes or not. That sound right? Anybody that's got more, our resident historian and partial parliamentarian is not with us there, but I'll do my best.
Yeah,
We only do one bill a year. We're not quite as experienced at it as others.
yeah, generally what happens is the committee reports the bill, then each other committee reports its amendments, if any. And then you go in reverse order and vote on the amendments. And you can vote down one committee's amendment, but still vote on the other pieces. So, and that has happened with some of my bills in the past, where there's been a committee report that's gotten voted down, and then you have to figure out how all the other pieces fit together. So,
And appropriations did not make an amendment. They just approved the Ways and Means amendment.
Correct.
Okay.
There was no amendment.
Okay.
Generally, this is a case where I will defer over here. There was a significant discussion from the chair, and the chair and JFO had a discussion about a lot of times because our money is it's a small chunk of the overall budget, but it's whatever 9% of the state budget. Some things will get handled in the budget, the big bill, and not in transportation. And there was a discussion about whether I didn't think, it had not been determined when we were done this morning, whether there were or would not have some other parts pulled out and put into the big bill. So that seemed like that wasn't happening, but it wasn't, that's not set yet. So
And that would be an amendment. They
then it
would
would,
change the bill. Let's say they want to take out a small section of funding and just put it in the big bill.
then we would have an amendment to our bill if
Because
that
it
is.
has to be in the big bill somewhere anyways.
Yes, Mr. Fiscal, that's exactly right. The appropriations committee did not amend the T-bill. What we'll do, and just to sort of go backwards, the T-bill is typically an authorizing bill. It's not an appropriations bill. So that's why both bills need to intersect, is that like the T-bill gives the permission, but it doesn't actually give you the money. So we've only made very few changes to the money sections. But what will work into the big bill is some references to the local appropriations. You may have transportation funds for like Drive Electric Vermont and things like that. And they'll show up as just, one line, if that'll, it'll be a sentence, but the appropriations committee did not make any changes to that email. And, we'll be working over the weekend just to make sure all the technical stuff lines up, but you'll see a lot of transportation related stuff end up in the budget, but that's just to transact what we're all authorized. The T-bill. And I think they decided to keep the interfund transfer language of the T-bill this committee.
That answer the questions that are in the process of where we're going through? Sorry, the text, so I will, we're coming back. We have Patrick on the Zoom because of significant portion of the amendments is related around mileage-based user fee. Let's get it up and take a look. I guess tell us what they did.
Great. For the record, I'm Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm pulling up the amendment here, which should be on the website as well. So there are 4 instances of amendment in the Ways and Means amendment. The first strikes out the pilot special fund, 2 sections related to the use of the excess local option tax revenues going to the pilot special fund for general state aid for town highways. So that is sections 14 and 15. They'll just be replaced with a deleted annotation. The second instance of amendment strikes out the mileage-based user fee chapter that was in your bill and replaces it with a new chapter 43, which is now called road usage charges. And you'll see why in a moment. Subchapter 1 of that is the mileage-based user fee. The purpose has stayed the same. The definitions have stayed the same. The big change, or the biggest change, is that there is now only one method for calculating the mileage-based user fee in here. It is the end of the year accounting of how many miles did you travel between the two inspections or between your inspection and terminating event. The Ways and Means Committee eliminated the pay in advance or newly registered vehicles and the corresponding transition provision for vehicles that for any vehicles that wouldn't have had their first mileage reporting period covered by their infrastructure fee. In lieu of that, later on, we'll see that there is an interfund transfer that covers at least some of the potential missing revenue. JFO is better to talk to about that. I think, as Logan mentioned the other day, any revenues are highly speculative at this point because we don't know how many newly registered vehicles we'll have and so forth. So that's the big change here, is there's one reporting method initially. Later on, we'll also see that there is a report back with a plan to implement a pay-as-you-go option, but that's not in the initial program.
Representative Pound?
So one reporting in that, previously that we left open the idea that you could self-report, they might develop.
Pay-as-you-go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not in the bill. That is not in their amendment. What is in their amendment is a requirement that AOT come back with a proposal to implement the self-reporting pay-as-you-go option, and that they present legislative language as part of that next year so that the legislature can review it and then approve that as an option going forward.
So this runs into Rep. Peaser's same issue. If I report this section, I'll be reporting on something in the bill that's not there.
That will then get changed.
Yeah, then get changed. But okay.
Yes.
And I want to be fair. I want to walk through this.
Yes.
Get it there. We will study it. We will come back to it on Tuesday and Wednesday for more information as the details. I am anxious to make sure that the agency has a chance to work on it. And if there are problems, there's significant changes. I don't know how much they've been reviewed.
Yeah.
I'll try to solve them here.
Yep. So the next.
So Damien, that's 4303 mileage-based user fee. That looks like,
Yep. So it used to be
Struck out.
subsections A, B, and C for 3 different
yep,
calculation options. The estimated fee upfront for newly registered vehicles, which has been removed. The pay-as-you-go option, or self-reporting as Representative Pouch referred to it, which has been taken out and replaced with a report back. And then the end of the mileage reporting period, where you've got your 2 different odometer readings and they measure the difference, which is left in. That's what you see as subsection A. So from a practical impact on this, it means that all EVs are on the same reporting method initially under the MBUF. It also means that in FY27, there will be no MBUF revenues because your mileage reporting periods will be starting, but you won't have any completed until midway through FY28. So, and there is an interfund transfer later that relates to that a little bit. But again, I'll let you talk with JFO about the dollar amounts and look at that and hear from AOT on their thoughts on that.
okay, I'm just trying to mark up my printed copy, and I'm seeing you've got the annual mileage base UDP, and then it now skips to the commissioner shall. In section 1, it looks like it's,
I had to delete some language that referred to other provisions because
Okay,
they
so I
don't
just
exist
wanna-
anymore.
and get rid of that. I'm just trying to figure out where this
If
commissioner shall.
it's helpful for committee members, I have a track changes version that shows the two MBUFs. It starts from what passed this committee and it goes to, and it shows the changes made by Ways and Means. And I've got that for my own benefit to make sure I got everything and remember everything, but I can, I will send a PDF of that to Gabby after
That
I'm
would be very
finished here.
Yeah.
And then you can see the differences.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to try to mark up your own
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah.
B is the old subsection D. This is the calculation of the mileage-based user fee. This has taken out references to the self-reporting or pay-as-you-go option. The mileage-based user fee rate is in subsection C now. The exemptions in subsection D, which are found on page 4 of the Ways and Means Amendment, have added now EVs owned and operated by the state and EVs that are used in short-term rentals. And we'll get to that. This is why there's now subchapters here, because we address them in a separate section that's its own subchapter. The concern that was raised around them is that because this is tied to registration in the state, you could avoid the mileage-based fee if you're a rental company by simply buying the cars and registering them in another state that you operate in, and then driving them here. And this at least will take away that incentive, but it also charges every EV, regardless of where it's registered, if it's rented, if the transaction takes place in Vermont. So you rent it at Burlington Airport or at a rental car location in Berlin or something like that, there will be a charge on that covers the EV's mileage because you won't be buying gas. So we'll get there in a moment. The next piece here in F, in your version of the bill, there was 15 days for an individual to appeal the amount of the assessment. Ways and Means extended that to 45 days. And let's see, can't remember if you added this or if they did. You added this, so I'll skip over it. The refunds. I know that came in late in the process, but at this point, things are blurring a little bit for me. So for the failure to pay the fee when due and the interest, they added in two things here. One is the ability to request a waiver of the interest or the amount due at any time. And they changed the language. So in the bill that came out of here, we'd use the phrase that the commissioner may waive some or all of the amount of interest if the commissioner determines that the overdue payment was due to excusable neglect. There was confusion about that term, and I think that was fair. It's not the best term, so they've changed it to the good cause existed for the delay in payment, or that requiring repayment would constitute an economic hardship. And it allows the commissioner to either do this upon receiving a request for a waiver or on the commissioner's own motion. But it is up to the commissioner's discretion. So the commissioner can make that determination, was there good cause for this person not making a payment? Maybe the messages weren't reaching them, et cetera. So the penalty rate stayed the same. Suspension or refusal to renew registration stayed the same. The powers of the commissioner were shortened. And the reason for the shortening was that in doing further review, we realized that after the general authority to administer and enforce the section, the authority to adopt rules, to adopt forms, and to contract with an account manager. The remaining authorities all mirrored what's already provided in sections 105 to 107 of Title 23 and apply to the whole title. So just took that language out as duplicative. For the judicial review section, they added an administrative appeal before you have to go to court. So any decision first can go through a hearing officer before you have to file an action in court. So within 45 days of any decision, order, or finding of the commissioner, you can file an appeal that will go to a hearing officer at the department. And then if you're still not satisfied after that process, you have the option of going to Superior Court for an appeal. And then as I alluded to earlier, there's a new subchapter 2, which is the EV rental vehicle road usage charge. So in our purchase and use tax, we have a 9% charge on motor vehicle rentals that replaces the purchase and use tax for those vehicles, or rental cars. And so what this would do is add an additional 1% to all of those that then goes straight to the transportation fund. It doesn't go into the purchase and use tax. So it doesn't get divvied up between education and transportation. And so this would be collected by the rental company from the renter in the same way that they currently collect the other 9% charge. We've tracked the rental charge definition that already exists in purchase and use tax to ensure that we don't end up in a situation where they're having to figure out different amounts to multiply those percentages by. So that's the changes to the mileage-based user fee portion.
And that rental car piece was added after the pleasure cars.
Yeah, it's a new subchapter because it's different. It's more of a tax than a usage fee. Well, I guess we're calling it a road usage charge or a rental vehicle road usage charge, but it's, and it won't 100% reflect road usage for the rental cars, but it at least gets them paying into the system since they won't be buying gas in the state. Well, that at least was the thinking next door. So, questions on the MBUF? Okay. They left the changes to the infrastructure fee the same, but then they struck out the mileage-based user fee transition piece and replaced it with a new transition. So because the pay-as-you-go and the upfront payments for new vehicles were taken out, this provides that your initial mileage reporting fee commences with your first annual inspection on or after January 1. And then if your initial mileage reporting period begins before you're required to renew your registration, so you're still covered by that infrastructure fee, this would apply that infrastructure fee to your first mileage reporting or MBUF bill. If your registration is afterwards, or before you actually get your vehicle inspected, so now you've got a registration without the infrastructure fee, there's no infrastructure fee credit applied to that first user fee bill. Does that make sense? So essentially, let's say you have a November 26, or let's say June 26 registration. So that will carry, and you paid your infrastructure fee, and it's a 1-year registration, carries you to June 27. If your inspection is before June 27, so it's in that period that's covered by that infrastructure fee.
But in 2027 versus 2026.
Yeah. Yeah. So in 2027, so it's still within that infrastructure fee period. They'll give you a credit for the infrastructure fee you paid on your initial mileage-based user fee bill. If instead your inspection is after June, you won't get any credit because you'll have renewed your inspection without any infrastructure fee in 2027. And so then they're going to start collecting the full amount of the user fee after that point.
Yeah, look, back to your example of registration in July of 2026.
Sure.
And inspection in April 2027.
Yep.
So I paid my infrastructure fee. I go over, I do get my car inspected,
Yes.
get it inspected. I now have a mileage starting point.
Yep.
And so is that when my NBUF starts?
It is, but you won't get
I
a
have to
bill.
pay the previous couple months because we don't know what it is. So it starts then, and in this case, I'll get that $89 credit toward the next year.
Yeah.
And will I be given I won't be given a bill at that inspection.
No, it'll be at your next inspection. They'll send a reading to the department
Yep.
and the department will send you a bill, not the inspection mechanic.
And I won't be able to pay ahead of time.
There is no current pay ahead of time or pay as you go option. We're going to get to that in the next
Yeah.
instance of amendment.
So that's a big change, but okay.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't that also mean that there's no revenue?
Right.
There is no revenue coming in fiscal year 2027 from the MBUF. Yeah, that is, yep. So that is 100%.
Paying it, the EV users are paying it, they just don't have to pay it for the end.
I'm not just.
Yeah.
We're not in discussion, but I would say it doesn't mean that they're not accruing it and that they owe it and that they will pay it. But we're not going to see the T funds in any of the timeframe is what, thus the next section.
Yes.
Okay, Representative Keezer.
So, there's no provision then that when you purchase the vehicle, that's when you report mileage?
Well, when you purchase a new vehicle, so if,
No, any vehicle. Anytime you purchase a vehicle, you have to give the
yes,
mileage.
yes, but for purposes of the MBUF, this is talking about vehicles that are owned and registered in Vermont before this starts.
Before this starts.
Yeah, so Representative Pouch, can I use you as an example here? So he, as we all know, owns an electric vehicle.
We all know now.
He's spoken about it quite a bit on the record.
Sorry, it's Friday.
And who will remain
All right,
nameless. by
I'm just
that.
gonna let myself out.
You did give him permission.
Yeah, so he currently owns an electric vehicle, assuming he doesn't trade that in between now and in December 31st. This is the transition that applies to him. At his next inspection after January 1st of next year, that's when his first mileage reporting period will start. But if he were to go out and trade that in for a new vehicle, let's say on January 1st, because that's a convenient day, they would take the mileage of that vehicle on the day he buys it, and that would be the start of his mileage reporting period as a new vehicle.
That's fine. So
Yeah.
we go into March and we buy a vehicle then.
Mhm.
Let's see if I don't think I've got a
What
problem.
year?
But the next, so January 1st, we're going into March.
So a year from now,
Sort of, I guess.
Yeah.
So we're still gonna capture the mileage.
Yeah.
And then they'll come around in March again and there'll be an inspection and that mileage that was captured on the sale of the vehicle will be then so you're not gonna have to wait for 2 sessions of inspections.
no,
So you
Yeah,
see,
you're-
if it hinges
that's-
all on inspections or, whatever it is.
yeah, so it's tied to the sort of when you get a new vehicle, that's when you start.
Okay.
If you have an existing vehicle, it's tied to your inspection schedule, which might be different. If you have a new vehicle, your odometer reading will start, and then
Right, okay.
when you get to your next inspection, it'll get read and you'll have a payment.
Okay. That's all right, one more. We're we're gonna dig back into this in a deeper, if we on Tuesday, we'll definitely walk through. We can't change this anyway,
Right.
without an amendment to an amendment. So that'd be another big question, but we need walk through understanding is where we're at, not detailed. But
I just want to flag that I think when this is presented on the floor, a couple scenarios,
we won't be
like what we've
presenting this.
discussed.
We will not be presenting
Well,
this.
the MBUF is gonna be,
We will not be presenting this language. We will present
okay,
our language.
okay,
Whoever presents from Ways and Means is going to have to explain this.
okay.
Sorry, I'm.
Yeah.
We won't defend
Yeah.
this. We won't defend or answer this.
But we'll have to present our language.
Yes.
Hope
We
they
will
have a
present our
scenario for
language,
what
and
that would be.
Whomever presents for them
It's
will
just
have
so
to.
helpful to have
Yes.
that side by
So
side.
I think that the more detail. in
But we're not
our-
doing that
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
I guess is
Just
what I'm
flagging
saying.
it.
I want you to know what they've done, and I do want the document that shows the side by sides, and we certainly do need to understand that, but our representative will not be presenting this or defending it.
Good.
Just make a note to do a side by side.
Any interrogation that comes up will be followed by, I need to speak to Ledge Council.
Well, I mean, that was for them to, yeah.
Okay.
All right, great. All right. So clear as mud. We'll move on to the pay-as-you-go implementation plan and report. So what their final instance of amendment here is they struck out the allocation of FY27 mileage-based user fee revenues because, as we discussed, there will be none. And they've inserted in lieu of that two sections. The first is a direction to the Secretary of Transportation to submit a written report to this committee and your colleagues on the other side of the wall, as well as your Senate counterparts, regarding the potential for offering a pay-as-you-go option for the mileage-based user fee, including a plan for implementation of the program with detailed information regarding anticipated staffing, administration, and information technology necessary to implement and operate it, anticipated costs, and legislative language necessary to enable the pay-as-you-go program. So, yeah.
I'm confused things, but potentially there is income that will come in 2027 for mileage-based user fee. If I buy my car in, January of 2027, and my inspection sticker is December of 2026, I'll come around to December and I'll get inspected and I'll have a mileage-based user fee based on this.
That'll be fiscal year 28, though.
Oh,
This is the way we count the fiscal years. Theoretically, there could be a very minimal amount of mileage if someone buys a used EV and it has an inspection date. That's a short period because it's been sitting on the lot.
okay.
So there is that possibility. It's likely to be very minimal if it occurs at all. But that is a theoretical possibility. Are there other
The
questions?
advantages of all this is it's great material for cabaret.
I like the silver lining approach in this. It's nice. All right, so the next is funds. Yes.
Wonder why we generally don't get late into the day on Friday. Keep going.
We're gonna get.
You gotta watch this game again. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, the last piece of their amendment is this fund transfer. So notwithstanding the requirements for the use of the Transportation Infrastructure Bond Fund, or TIB fund, to the contrary, in state fiscal year 2027, the amount of $2.2 million would be transferred from that to the regular transportation fund. Of that amount, 1.7 would be allocated to in state fiscal year 2027 to general state aid for town highways. This is In addition, would be appropriated along the same formula lines, but be in addition to the base appropriation provided for the general state aid for town highways. You'll notice that there is a $500,000 difference between the transfer and the amount that's allocated to town highways. So my understanding of their intent next door is that this 1.7 million one-time to general state aid for town highways is in lieu of the pilot fund ongoing transfer that was in sections 14 and 15. And that the 500,000 one-time that's for general transportation fund purposes is to replace any potentially lost revenues from the changes to how revenue is collected from the MBUF.
Which we had directed to town highways.
No, so that was just transportation fund. It is also worth noting that there is this 1% on EV rentals, which I cannot give you an amount on that, but that would be coming in fiscal year 2027 after January 1st. Yeah, assuming there are EVs that are rented in Vermont.
Bert?
Is there any way, well, I guess there would be, sort of based on the formula, I know every town gets a different amount based on their road knowledge, but it would be interesting to know what approximately, might go to the various towns.
We did hear a little bit of testimony of what that might mean before, but I'm sure that JFO can walk us to that pretty quickly or give it to us on Tuesday, what it might be.
Yeah,
It's not
I would
a,
just,
when you divide it up amongst all the
In
towns, by all
terms
their
of
mileage, it's not a lot.
reporting to my town,
Yep.
it'd be nice to say, by the way, where, this money will be, it's all of the money will be coming.
We heard $1 million equals X amount.
Yeah, I mean, it's 4% anyway, it's more. Roughly.
We'll hear that on the, or you want to jump in, but okay.
I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, that I'm gonna volunteer Logan for this. I'm gonna help, because I already done this, but this is not a difficult thing for us to put
Okay,
together with a
great.
little bit of time. The V-Trans actually has on their website all of the town mileage by class. This is a matter of putting it into an Excel sheet and doing some simple math, like making it legible.
Thank you.
Let's see a little bump, yeah.
I think that would be, it would be nice, if people might.
There's sort of back at the end, like every million you run through the program sort of averages out to be in the neighborhood of about $3,000, but there's a lot of variation.
Yeah.
I think that. Thank you.
Donuts for the road crew.
Some level of, the bigger issue is that this is a one-time money and what we headed out looking for was some commitment to some ongoing structural change. And I do recognize that improvements or changes in the building happen incrementally. And that's part of why we're not voting, understanding and digesting it. It is a goal of the committee often, or has usually is, to find more help for towns. So I'm supportive of that portion of it. We did not get any kind of sort of systemic or incremental piece. I also want to be clear, this is money that was already in the transportation coffers. This is not new money. This is us, this is taking money and allocating money that was sitting there in a fund unobligated, and we have obligated it. This is not the Ways and Means Committee finding new money for town highways. This is not new money coming from anywhere else. This was already in the agency's coffers, and we are redirecting it. They are redirecting it to town highways. I just want to be clear that this is not them coming, nobody else in the building is coming to help. Nobody came with new money. We took it from another portion of the town, of the transportation budget, or they took it from another transportation portion of the budget. So I do not want anyone to leave here thinking that somebody came up with some new help for town highways. But it is going to town highway. It is, I'm sorry, not new money. It is town highway, though, money they didn't have before, and that is important to us.
We're using it because we're we're not withstanding the actual use for the TIP funds.
The reason we not withstood that is simply that the transportation infrastructure bond money, its primary use is to pay debt service on bonds, which fortunately we don't have currently. But its secondary usage is to pay for major infrastructure projects, road, bridge, etc. And this puts it into the general T-fund pot to be used for any purpose. And so that's why we not withstood it, because we didn't want to force them to try to juggle funds to figure out, well, we can only use this 500,000 for these 3 specific purposes. So that's why we not withstood it. It's more, as we like to say, belts and suspenders to assure that it's can be used easily.
I was here when we set up that fund. It's 2012.
Yeah, we can feel good that the NBUF is new money for the transportation fund. These other things are really shuffling money around. So, it's up to the transportation.
Right, there is-
committees to continue to find new money rather
There
than,
is some little bit of structural change.
yeah. No, it's good. It is new money.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Patrick, are you still out there?
I am.
I gathering you probably only saw this yesterday, this language piece, or would you be willing to comment on your awareness of these 11 pages and whether the agency has had any opportunity to input on it or have a chance to start working on it in any format?
Sure. For the record, Patrick Murphy, State Policy Director for the Agency of Transportation. So these are changes that were made in House Ways and Means yesterday afternoon. Took some time to work through this morning. It's not an outcome that we were anticipating, and we do have some concerns with the approach. So particularly around the removal of what would be options for people to make things more convenient. So the removal of pay-as-you-go as a potential option for people, where it might fit to pay more in line with how others pay the gas tax. Then there is a question just about how revenues will be seen or not in calendar year 2027. So we knew with this transition that it would be hard to predict what the revenues would be in the first several months, because you have a couple of things going on, at least with the original language that was proposed. You have the transition where people can apply their EV infrastructure fees against their future mileage reporting period, but then you also had the ability of people to select a payment frequency that worked best for them. So whether they were, for some people, that's going to be the ability to just pay up front and forget about it for most of the year. For others, it would be to pay on a quarterly or monthly basis. So we knew in the first on-ramp of this program there'd be unpredictable revenues, but that over the long term, this is going to be obviously a net credit to the transportation fund. This language from House Ways and Means just further extends that unpredictability of revenues. So what I understand from the language is that you will now, your reporting period for mileage will begin in 2027. It will end at some point in 2028, and that is when you will be first invoiced for the amount of driving that you've already done. And now you'll have the opportunity to select whether you pay for that upfront or quarterly or monthly basis. So you're extending out into the next year payments for driving that's already been done on the road network. Which raises different questions. It's certainly not analogous to how people are paying the gas tax, where everything's owed once you put that however many gallons of gas into your tank. But it does set up some situations, I'm sure, that would have to be further figured out. What happens in the case when we have this description of a terminating event? What happens when you sell your vehicle? What happens when your vehicle is totaled, or something happens where you no longer own your vehicle, but you still have a bill that is attached to that vehicle? That could cause some hardship where you need first to be able to pay more of a lump sum than you'd be expected to in this situation, where what we've said is you're assessed an estimated amount, and then you have the ability to pay that as you go, and then it's reconciled at the end so that you have only a small amount left to pay, or a small amount that's credited towards your next mileage reporting period. I think that's going to work better logistically, and I think it's fairer both to the user, but also to the transportation fund. So we do have concerns with that. There's other language about rental cars. I did reach out to staff at DMV to understand what the development of IT work that would need to happen to allow for that possibility. There is a cost to that with our contractor that might be in the ballpark of $50,000 or more. I don't know how many electric vehicles are currently registered in Vermont that are rental vehicles. Looking into that, not sure what 1% represents in terms of, whether it's an adequate proxy for how much mileage is being traveled in those vehicles. And then there were some questions. We did reach out to representatives of the industry to understand how the logistics of a rental car company paying this. It seems like maybe that's not as big an issue, but those are other things to consider.
Okay.
I think the biggest question is around this, complete change in how and when we're going to begin collecting revenue, which is a surprise to us.
Okay. On a walkthrough basis, on a bigger general picture, is there any more questions between the agency and for our ledge council on sort of the language? We're going to get either a comparison or a what's different, some kind of way of, I'm understanding there from our ledge council, we're going to get some kind of way of explaining, seeing the difference between what theirs does and what original language does. I'm going to ask the agency to sort of look at that as well and come back at these issues that you have, try to outline them for the committee. We'll book some time on Tuesday and potentially Wednesday. It makes me wonder, in this question, we're going to ask our JFO to join the seat now, and whether this is a question they can answer based on committee, what they heard in the House Appropriations, or we'll go to the Speaker's office and get an answer, whether they're looking for us to present by Wednesday, or whether it will be Wednesday or a Thursday, or when anybody's heard about the timeline yet. This is a pretty substantial 11 pages, and we want to make sure we understand it and that we hear something on, potentially more on it. So we may not be ready for Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know what the dates might be. I don't know whether I would like people to know what they have for a timeline to be ready to present and or question and defend. So we're going to have committee time on this Tuesday, Wednesday, find out what, we don't know what the floor is. I'll see if I can find out about that, what the plan is. But I also want to hear the financial pieces from Logan and Representative Burke.
So I'll let you know I have to leave to.
We are definitely, I appreciate that, and I'm we're certainly trying to want to do that. I agree with you. Representative White?
I have a question, I think for Patrick. Did we talk through, is there a penalty if you're due for your inspection? It's when your mileage-based user fee is going to be calculated, but you don't go in that month. And maybe you don't go for a couple months, which is kind of, not uncommon practice. Is there a penalty for that? Are we, I know there's a penalty for, like, there's interest if you don't pay, within a 30-day time period, and then it continues to compound for the entire year. But just thinking about, cash flow, and we're thinking there's going to be a lot of money coming in for when inspections are due, but actually they're not happening in a timely fashion.
I'll defer to Damien on this newer language, but I believe there is a penalty basically on interest. So if you're basically you're extending your reporting period from 12 to 14 months, that would, so in essence, you'd just be paying more of those miles between month 12 to month 14, right? Then
You're accruing more miles, yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then
But-
and then
there's
if
no
you're
penalty.
and then if you're not, if you haven't paid beyond that, then there's, after the 30 days or whatever it is, you're accruing more interest on that. But the biggest thing is still, if your balance isn't paid when you go to register your vehicle, you're not able to move forward with the registration. And,
Right.
most people are going to want to be able to drive, to use their
That's-
vehicle
yeah.
legally. And so that is the biggest sort of compliance mechanism.
Damian Leonard, Ledge Council, just to clarify, there is also the 98th percentile assessment option for the commissioner. If there's no mileage report in a reasonable time, the commissioner can send you an assessment for 98th percentile mileage. So your MBUF payment would go up from whatever the actual is. If it's average roughly 154 to, I think the estimate is roughly $375. And that is in both versions, House and Ways and Means. It was not changed.
And is there a time frame
Reasonable.
associated with that? Yeah, so it's nebulous.
Yes.
So we don't know whether it would be assessed, if you're a month late or 6 months late, or
Logan, welcome back to the committee.
Thank you. For the record, Logan North, the Joint Fiscal Office. I have a fiscal note for the bill as amended by Ways and Means, which I presented downstairs this morning. By Tuesday, I will also have, there is a draft version of the bill as it came out of this room that will be sort of updated and finalized if you want to look at sort of what it looked like from your bill versus what it looks like from after being amended. That'll be ready by Tuesday. But I'll just walk you through some of the things in the bill as recommended by the committee next door. 11 and 12, those are the same as in your bill. Those are the Transportation Alternative Grants Program. Drive Electric is still in there, the one-time appropriation. Then the big change is the mileage-based user fee. So as mentioned, right, the state won't assess its first MBUF until at the earliest January 1st, 2028. But starting January 1st, 2027, we will repeal the EV infrastructure fee, the $89 that is currently being levied. So we won't generate any money in fiscal year 27, but we will be losing the revenue from the EV infrastructure fee. I estimated that in fiscal year 27 to be around $500,000. 28, fiscal year 28, right? So the fiscal year starts sort of halfway between a calendar year, so we'll get about 6 months of collections, right? If we start assessing revenues on January 1 of 28, we'll start collecting money in the second half of fiscal year 28. The issue or the sort of unknown in how much revenue we'll be collecting is that you have options of frequencies in which you can pay. Someone might pay their entire assessment upfront. Someone might choose to do it monthly. So we might get 6 months of payments. We might get the whole assessment. If you're assessed in May, we might only get 1 or 2 months of payments. So the estimate I came up with last night was between $350,000 to maybe $1 million if everyone sort of pays up front and we get the most in the first 6 months. Loss from the EV infrastructure around $1.2 million. So even in FY28, estimated revenue would be net revenue, if you take these two into account, would be a loss somewhere in the range of maybe $200,000 to $850,000. Then in FY29, we sort of gotten through this transition period, and most vehicles, or all vehicles, should be on this MBUF and being assessed for the miles they've driven in the past year. Collections then are estimated at $2.6 million, and then lost EV infrastructure fee revenue is about 1.4. So in 29 and then into the future, we would expect to generate positive net revenue from this. I estimated around $1.2 million in FY29, and then this will continue to grow as EV adoption also continues to grow. Both of these numbers grow, right? So as EVs grow, we would have collected more in the EV infrastructure fee, but because the average MBUF is higher than $89, we will sort of gain more and more revenue as this program goes into the future. I'll say that there are a number of unknowns with this. There have been some changes that I have not been fully able to incorporate to the extent of the rigorous analysis that really needs to be. So these are very much just estimates, but sort of give you a general estimate of what we might be seeing for numbers related to that. The road usage charge for the rental vehicles, the EV rental vehicles, this again was analysis I did last night using the current revenue that we generate from the 9% tax. I figured out what 1% of that was, and I did a very rough estimate of the percentage of EVs as a total of all vehicles in the state, and said that what if rentals also represented the same amount, and got essentially roughly $20,000, give or take some money there. I would obviously want to actually know how many EVs are in rental fleets to really be able to tell you what that number is, but that was a rough estimate that I came up with. This EV fee is the same as in your bill. This is the plug-in one. You all know about that one. And then lastly is this transfer. So it proposes to transfer $2.2 million from the TIB fund that was sort of left in the bottom of the TIB this year, transferred into the transportation fund. 1.7 million of that will go to town highway aid, as you all know, and then the 500,000 will sort of be left to cushion and make up for this potential revenue loss of $500,000.
As a comment for those preparing, I just want to say in Ways and Means and in approps, there was questions on, of course, mileage-based user fee, but there were questions on Drive Electric in both committees. FYI, September, and also there were questions in both committees on what's transportation alternatives about. So just be aware that the explanation, of course, they didn't get necessarily an explanation before they asked their questions, but think about that when you're presenting your sections. They don't deal with it every day, and they don't know what the terms mean and whatnot. So they don't know what those programs are supposed to get done. So we have to think about our floor members not necessarily understanding that piece, but that's a side note. They're not familiar with the programs, and they already ask questions in those areas. I'd expect those some more in the piece. Questions on this?
Also, just make one comment Representative McCoy reminded me, looking at hers, there is updated, I think on the website, versions of the budget on a page. And the comparison that reflect what happened next door. By Tuesday, I'll also have comparisons for this, as is passed out of this committee and that committee. So if you want to sort of look at all those and compare them, just given the turnaround, I have not had time to do all of those yet.
Representative Lally?
Oh, I'm just on the section 23. That is indicated as one-time funding. So.
Next year, we're gonna be in the same boat.
Mhm.
Confirm
But I will say that conversation is out there. You will see, if you read legislative reports from Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce, and League City, there's a dialogue going on that's now, we spent, along with many other people, driving that dialogue related to the T funds. Now I'm hearing it related to the highways and towns and of course pilot. But I am hearing and seeing already the amount of people that are discussing it is up. And that is part of this good goal. It's committee's goal to get more money for town highways, I suppose, in a way that is addressed. Also, the goal is to drive the conversation about the need for structural changes.
Sustainable funding. Yeah.
And we hear that in public transit, which might be what we go next to after, there's a meeting next Monday about that. We've been invited to,
Email from Clayton.
yes, and I also responded to the one that Captain was working on, and so I'm asking you to look at it. You can ask more questions if you like, but we need to figure out what we are going to comment and not comment in response to the amendment, and we're going to hear more and update. The rest of the members can get updated as they choose, and we will take a vote on it. We'll have to take a vote on it on Tuesday. As soon as I find out what the floor schedule is for us to have to come, I'm probably trying to ask for, I don't know what the objective, how quick it has to get done. So an extra day would probably be good for our committee. But I also, the part where we sent it out very unanimously with strength of 11-0. So we got to figure out what does that mean to us?
If we were to
So-
interrogate Ways and Means on their amendment, maybe the first question is, can you tell us how long you worked on this bill? And the list of people who testified for these changes?
I know.
And that is that reality, that question, that exchange, this process is going to be unusual
Yeah.
for us. I don't, I haven't been doing this a long time, but this is a little more controversial than our standard. Perhaps, some of the, I think a couple of years ago, when I was a new member, the fee issue was obviously significantly controversial, and there was tons of questions on the floor. But overall, I suspect generally the T-bill doesn't generate a huge discussion. There is discussion out there. We have to figure out how we're going to address it. That's why I appreciate you staying late or staying and at least knowing what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, is there other questions or not? Okay. With all of that, then.